Now, we all hate robocalls, and we all hate worrying about credit card fraud, digital fraud, and someone getting their hands on our money, right? But you can't help but loving a movie about someone that's fighting back against that. Or to be specific, a 93-year-old grandmother in LA fighting against the scammers who took $10,000 off her. That 93-year-old grandmother is played by the legendary June Squibb in her first leading role in the Josh Margolin written and directed Thelma, which debuted at Sundance this year and was released in theaters by Magnolia Pictures on June 21st. So June and Josh are here, ladies and gentlemen. Madame.
Thank you.
And by the way, check out the kicks. Look, nice. All right, so before we talk about Thelma, we're going to watch something from the comedy drama, and I want to point something out about this, because not only is June in this scene, but the iconic Richard Roundtree is in this scene, in what was his last performance, one of the great actors of our time. So, let's take a look at Thelma.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm sorry about all of it. But we gave it a good try, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
I lived with my parents till I was 23. Then I moved in with Teddy. And I lived with him until I was 91. I've lived just me for 2 years now. Gets lonely sometimes. And I miss Teddy. But I tried sushi, and I like that quite a bit. I've enjoyed my time alone. I guess I wanted more of it.
So, June, I have to ask, I mentioned it in the introduction, and I'll be honest with you, I double-checked this. This is your first leading role?
On film, yeah.
Wow. Better late than never?
Well, I never think of it like that, really. I mean, I've enjoyed so many of the roles that I've played. And to me, my role is always the most important role in the film. So here I am as a leading lady, and it's fun.
So, being first on the call sheet, that's obvious, but is it actually like, was there anything different for you? I mean, you know, we're here all afternoon. We could do your entire legacy, but, you know, we'd have to come back tomorrow, right? But is there anything different for you being
Yeah, I think, you know, you realize that you get a lot more time in front of the camera. So, I mean, it's more leisurely, I think, than if you're doing a supporting role.
Josh, this film has really struck a chord with a lot of people. It really talks, I think, a lot about our time and the way we live and the America we live in. For you, what was the biggest challenge about telling the story the way you wanted to?
I think the thing that was always top of mind was tone, honestly, because I think when you're, you know, with a premise where you have a 93-year-old woman taking revenge and kind of getting back what's hers, I think it's very easy for that to tip into pure parody. And to me, what was so important, and something I think we saw eye to eye about really early in the process, was trying to protect the tone and trying to play everything sincerely, play everything earnestly, give everything as much weight as possible, and let the sort of inherent absurdities take care of themselves, if that makes sense. Because to me, it was always kind of an expression of, or a way to celebrate my grandmother's sort of spirit and her grit and her tenacity. And I think I just got excited about trying to explore that through the lens of kind of a lo-fi action movie. And then, yeah, tone was always really important because I never wanted it to feel like we were poking fun as much as sort of going along for the ride with her and experiencing these trials and tribulations through her lens.
You talk about your grandmother, and I wasn't going to bring that up because it's obviously personal to you, but give us a sense of that, about how this was an inspiration from your own family and what you kind of brought to that. And also I'd like to know is like, how did he translate some of that to you? So you got a sense of like, who is this character?
Yeah, well, Josh gave me some little films that he'd made, like her, Thelma going to the store, or Thelma celebrating birthday, and just to get an idea of who she was and what she was like.
Yeah, because I never wanted June to feel like she had to, do an impression, so to speak.
Yeah, that was never a part of it.
But yeah, just
Because that can become that can become something it does. Like you said,
Yeah.
it becomes like, oh, isn't that funny? The old person who wears a baseball hat backwards kind of gag.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We wanted to steer clear of that and to just, like June was saying, I had been making these little documentaries about my grandma when she was living alone in her 90s for the first time ever, kind of like the character says in the clip. And it was just an interesting time because two things were happening. She was grieving the loss of her husband and kind of entering this new chapter of aging, but also kind of relishing having that space and that time in a way that she just never did before then. So she'd always just been a huge figure in my life and sort of an inspiration to me and someone I always looked up to. So in the wake of the real scam incident that inspired the movie, I realized I had been thinking about her for, I guess my whole life, but especially in those past few years in a new way. And the movie kind of became a way to both celebrate her and kind of reckon with those contradictions and those, anxieties that I had about her safety and well-being, and also her being able to kind of hold on to who she is.
And there's also some elements of it, and we don't really see it in this particular clip, but like, how many? No, we're not going to do it. But there's a real gritty side to this as well, which is some of the economic realities that some people have to deal with. Malcolm McDowell's character, obviously, that's a real thing. Like you find out, oh, that's why you're scamming me and doing this thing. That is very much telling of the time we live in. I mean, if you see people, regardless of what you think about the election, the way that went, but people talked about the economy, the cost of things and stuff like that. That's a very serious tone. So when you talk about tone, I describe the film as a comedy drama because I think it's a genre buster, basically. So for you guys, how do you navigate between those things? Like June, because some of it's, just out and out funny. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
And some of it's very serious.
But I think, for me, comedy, and I have done some, and
June, you've literally done everything. like June, you're in Inside Out too. Come on, like you guys know that, right? She's in that one of the biggest billion-dollar movies of the year.
No, but I always look at funny as very real. So I never think in terms of this is funny. I just don't. And as I said, I've had friends like Dom DeLuise and Ruth Buzzy. Now, they think funny, and I can recognize that, but I can't. I don't do that. So we were together completely on how this should be played, or what we felt and our feeling going into it, the scenes.
Josh, one of the elements of this is we saw the late, great Richard Roundtree. Obviously, you're in the film. Malcolm McDowell's in the film. I don't think it's a spoiler for me to say that. This is a heavyweight cast.
Oh yeah, I can speak to that. It was very intimidating, and also pretty quickly became just such a gift to the movie because you feel like you're in good hands, and you feel like you can, when you're, especially as a writer and director, and I cut the movie, so I was very, with it from start to finish in many ways. But I think at a certain point when you're making the thing, you also have to get out of its way a little bit and let the people that you've empowered do the thing you've empowered them to do.
One of the things, and I think that clip, actually, I'll talk to it, because there is an element of Thelma that's very theatrical. Like that clip we just saw with you and Richard, that could be from a play. Like it's two people sitting at a bench, talking. And so for you, because you've leapt across all those mediums, is it a different skill set?
It's not really a different skill set. I think it's a different in projection and where you're projecting and how much you're projecting. But it's not, you're a good actor or you're a bad actor,
I think I know what they think you are.
No, but I don't think there's that much difference between stage and film. You're either good or bad at it.
There's that famous Richard Burton story where he talked about how Elizabeth Taylor taught him how to be a movie actor. Because he said, I came out and did Hamlet and this and that. It's like what you talk about. It's projection. And Elizabeth Taylor was like, it's about stillness. Look at the camera. Let the camera see you.
Well, you do. I think you have to begin to realize what the camera is. And I love the camera. I really
Camera loves you.
Yes. It's been very good to me. It really has. But and that is different from stage, because in stage, I think you love your audience, and it's bigger. You know, you've got a wider range, and you're louder usually. So that's the difference. But it's really, I mean, you either work well or you don't, you know.
I think in a way also both of your skill sets came into play in this, because so much of it, like you said, is kind of dialogue driven and conversational. But then there's all these kind of low-key action elements. And June was a dancer for many years, was on Broadway for many years. And I think that physicality ended up actually playing into the movie in a way that I didn't even totally anticipate, I think, before we started working together on it.
They thought I wouldn't do any of it.
We hoped you'd do some of it, but we didn't know how much.
Well, I mean, but so, I mean, to that end, you know, Josh, you directed the film. Obviously, you star in it. What were some of the surprises beyond you doing your action scenes there, Tom Cruise? But like, what were some of the surprises that came out of this?
I think more often than not, and this was a cue I took from June, the answer to problems we'd run into was simplicity. Like, you know, when you're dreaming it up, you have all these ideas of how you want something to look and to feel, and this is going to be this great shot, and we're going to do it like this. And then on the day, some of those stay true, but some of those start to feel kind of fussy and beside the point. And June, I think having people like June and Richard and Malcolm who have, you know, this isn't their first rodeo, it was really, really clarifying sometimes and helpful to be like, you know what, this is too much, or we're trying to do too much with this. Let's simplify. Let's leave space for the most important thing to sit. And that to me was a big, I think one of the big things process-wise that I took away. That and the fact that June never dropped a line, which is just insane.
Really? Is that true?
Yes. I learned those lines.
There's not some guy on the other side with the big cue card?
No.
Not that I was
never.
aware of.
You didn't know. That wasn't in your budget.
If he was, we didn't bring him in.
Yeah. But so what about for you? So, I mean, you know, was there a surprise? You're like, oh, I just didn't see that on the dance card for Thelma.
You mean the physical thing?
Or just anything.
Anything?
For you, as an actor, as a person. I mean, it's obviously, it's put, you know, it's your first leading role in a feature film. It's at your age, it's taken your career, which is pretty great, to yet another new level.
But his script was wonderful. So, and to me, if the script is good.
Yes.
But if the script is good, that's what you need, you know, and that's how I work, really, from the script.
So how did you always envision June as Thelma?
I did. There really wasn't a plan B. The plan B was I don't know what happens to the movie. Plan A was June, and thank God she signed on. She was the first actor who came on board, and I think it made the whole thing possible, and it just set the tone, I think, from early on. How did he
pitch it to you?
He didn't.
Oh. You just showed up?
No.
I'm going to make this movie with you.
I'm here. Beanie Fieldstein is a family friend of Josh, and knew about, they were talking about the script. I don't quite know how it happened, but Beanie, he didn't know how to get a script to me. And Beanie said, I'll get a script to her. So she texted me and said, I'm sending you a script. I said, okay, in text. And then I got the script, and I read it, and I thought, I really want to do this. And so the first time he called me, and we laughed about this because he said later that he thought they would have to talk me into doing this film. And instead...
You have a whole pitch ready?
I tried to. I was just, nervous on the phone for about 30 minutes, and I guess June was just sitting there letting me sweat, and then she said, I'm in.
I'm in. It never, it just never occurred to me to do anything. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, are we going to see a Thelma 2?
We're talking about it.
Yeah.
We're talking about it.
Yeah.
Oh.
You got to I think one of those Thelma Goes to Texas.
Oh, you had an idea too.
Oh yeah, we were talking about a legal thriller, but we'll talk.
Yeah.
We got a whole bunch of different ideas.
Kathy Bates just did that.
So then we can't.
You could. You know what? You can do it. Right? No. Get Ryan Reynolds to show up as your other grandson for 5 seconds, etc. Guys, we're almost out of time, and I just want to say I really, really appreciate them. Come on. told you we were going to have legends. In all seriousness, I really hope you guys do a sequel, because it's certainly, you're amazing. You really are amazing in it. And it's fantastic to see this. And, a lot of times when people talk about older people in our society, they're, off to the side or the butt of jokes and what have you. I think that you're really, it inspires people. And I think it shows them, too, people in families, it shows them another side, like, oh, grandma's not just sitting there watching Price is Right all day.
I think
There's anything wrong with Price is Right.
No, but I think that's true. And that was another thing when I read the script that really hit me. I mean, this was like saying age is not damning. There's nothing, it can be very uplifting.
Well, thank you, Josh. Thank you, June.
Thank you.
Thelma.
Thanks, guys.